there, everyone, and welcome to this very exciting episode of Inner Business. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Jennifer as we continue our mission to share stories of fabulous entrepreneurs who are 100% embracing their spiritual intuition and systems in business and can prove to you that it works. I'm so excited to have you here today, Jennifer. But those who haven't met you yet, could you share a little bit about who you are and what lighting the path is? Tell us everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a pleasure and a delight to be with you and your audience, Selena. And I am Jennifer Regular. I connect with people all around the world about sacred leadership. Sacred leadership is really where I'm lighting the path to those who are shifting out of their career into their calling and noticing what that is, becoming more aware of what that is, getting more clarity around that, and to gather the courage to rise up into their calling. And so that's what really lighting the path is all about. And a thing to note about that too is that no one can really light the path for you because you are the light. And so it's just helping people to recognize that, to be a role model of the light in doing that. And, when we talk about leadership, and quite a long time ago, I looked up the etymology of what leader meant. And it was lidere. And you know what it said, Selena? To guide and bring forth. And to me, that really speaks to the origin of leadership and what sacred leadership is all about, is owning up to the sacred responsibility of being here at this time. And it really comes from conscious intention of the transformation that's taking place within ourselves, within humanity, within the business world, and lighting the path to what that can look like moving forward. So really defining success from the inside out.
I am really looking forward to this conversation. You
Mm-hmm.
describe yourself as, and I love this, a sacred leadership guide. And I love guides. I believe that in our business, we're all here to be the guide for someone, whether we're selling a product or a service. Someone's coming to us with a problem, with a flaw. If you want to see it in like the storytelling narrative, the hero is always the one that has the flaw and needs the guide to get them through the trial, right? So I love that. And you were saying that that's where you work from. I'm just curious, has it always felt natural to you to lead from that space? Or is this something that you had to choose?
It's been a bit of both, to be honest with you, Selena. The way that it worked for me is that has been always very a natural ability. Some would say that it was a gift, a natural gift that's been brought into using in this lifetime. And it's something that I chose to do through the roles, like you say, through different roles that we have as leaders or managers or whatever it might be when we're working in an organization or in another business where we're more of an employee, and we choose what kind of approach we're going to have, how we bring ourselves into that, and how we can still follow our calling within that role. And that's really what I help people to see and really expand into that space, so that we're not just checking off boxes and conforming and performing a certain way or standard, or that's in alignment with policies and procedures and rules and responsibilities, but choosing to be your authentic self within that role and still working in that ballpark of what the rules and regulations and all of that is meant to be in a different way. It's all about the way that you operate from your true values and your authentic self, your core essence of who you are. And essentially, when you really get to embody that kind of leadership, that's how you become a living legacy. And you kind of blaze the trail for those to come for you, because they're expanding into new possibilities, new potentials that they never really thought about before, because they're just kind of automatically going through what everyone else is going through, checking those boxes. And so it's a bit of both, in that it's natural and it's something I had to choose consciously of how I was going to show up in the different roles that I had before I decided to just follow my entrepreneurial spirit and establish a business.
I love that. And so many leaders in business, whether they're a solopreneur or they're scaled a bit and they've got a team and they're leading a team, really struggle with that, because we have all these societal conditions really about what that should look like, and how we should behave. And I find that even stronger with women than I do men. I don't know if that's your experience. For me, we're always trying to be the good girl and do the right thing.
Right.
But for those people listening, and I know my listeners will be those kind of people who are fully embodying what you're talking about, or more interestingly, can hear that call, like they're not feeling particularly true in the sense that there's some kind of discomfort going on and they're not feeling confident enough yet to unleash that, whatever that might be, however they would phrase that, like being woo or even just standing up for someone in a meeting because there's this culture around, like whatever that manifests as, there's this calling inside them to step into them, like their true authentic self. What would you say to someone who needs that full permission? Because it's scary, right? It feels scary. How do you give yourself full permission?
Really allowing yourself to have a voice, to speak your truth, and to have the courage to do that really comes from trusting in a higher power and that you're here to serve a higher purpose. So trusting in the person beyond your boss, right? Person could be your higher power being a god of your understanding or spirit or the universe or whoever you may feel called to follow. And trust that they have more power than the person that you may be a little bit afraid of or intimidated by, where you don't feel you can use your voice in a safe way. Trust that you're being guided by that higher power and that no one else would have power over you to keep you small, to keep you conforming in those conditions and the restrictions that don't support your growth and your well-being and the kind of impact that you're truly meant to have in this lifetime. It's the energy and passion, Selena, that really has the greatest impact. And if you're in a situation where that's actually draining your energy more than it's fueling it, where it doesn't allow you to have that passion, then you're not going to kind of have to make the difference or have the kind of impact or be able to meaningfully engage in what you're doing. And that's a detriment to everyone involved, But when you actually be your true self, people will respect you more because you're not comparing or competing or following anything. You're being a true leader, right? By showing up in your full potential and in your authentic way. And there's this light that emanates, this radiance that comes about that is very attractive and very magnetic. So if you're in a situation that doesn't support that light and who you're meant to be and the kind of difference you're here to make, they'll dissolve in that light. Those structures will crumble because they project a false sense of self, a false sense of security even. And so that's okay because now you're going to grow into the conditions that are really going to support the way that you're meant to flourish. There's no forced outcomes anymore. You're actually given the space to move into what you're here to pass on. So going back to that passion, this is what came to me. You mentioned earlier, did something come to you, some sort of revelation? When I had lost everything, and I wrote about this in The Ultimate Guide to Living Your Legacy, there was a chapter in a part of a collaborative book where I wrote about leading with passion and lighting the path to profound impact and collective transformation, because that's what I feel is my eye that I'm here to pass on. And that's how the passion showed up for me. I was lying in bed and completely depleted because I had given all of myself, all of my power away to a marriage that didn't support the growth or the love that I had to share. And I lost the husband. I had to claim bankruptcy, the dogs, the dream, all of that was shattered and just gone. And it was a false sense of safety and security, and so of course it dissolved and it crumbled, but I didn't understand it at the time. I couldn't see any future for myself. I didn't know what that looked like looking forward. I didn't know that I can trust myself in making choices and decisions again because things didn't work out so well when I made certain choices and decisions, And so I had to learn to trust myself again. But here I am lying in bed, Selena, and I'm just looking up at the ceiling, feeling no energy whatsoever. Can't see a vision for my future. And then there was this little spark, this spirit that actually jolted me up. I don't know if you ever had that kind of experience. It was like a literal wake-up call where I just jolted up, and it was like, remember your passion. When you break up the word, it's pass I on. And that I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And then I had all of these flashes of all the different wakes and funerals I had been to, because I've also experienced a lot of loss in my life through that. In fact, by the time I was 21, there were 17 deaths that I contended with. And now, 3 decades later, of course, there's been many more. But that was such a prominent time where there were so many so close and so young for me. But I bring this up because when I was attending those different wakes and funerals, people talk about the person that passed on, the relationship they had, the things they remember about them. And there's a few things I learned through that. One is how precious life is. We don't have a whole lot of time here. Time is a non-renewable resource, sorry to say. And so we want to make the most of that and use it wisely. And it was interesting to hear what was being said. People for the same person can have very different views of that person and whatever relationship or dynamic they had. They could be, someone who was a teacher, someone who inspired them, someone who created a lot of conflict and struggle for them. Someone, whatever it was meant to be, that's actually the legacy that they're leaving behind. That's what they're actually being remembered for, are those qualities, those values, the impact they had on people's lives around them. So this going back to leadership and passion and energy, you're going to be led down the path that you're meant to be. That you're here to pass on is your potency. So it's not so much about your skills and abilities. So don't worry about your competency or trying to be perfect or trying to live up to someone else's standards, because that's never going to fulfill you. Your days may be full, your to-do list may be full, but that's not going to bring that deeper fulfillment. What will is when you're in touch and in tune and operating from your soul's intention, that you're here to pass on is your potency. And this is what means to embody that and be yourself. Have the courage to do that.
I never realized that. The pass I on. Oh my God, I got so many tingles. I was like, oh, like a light bulb went on in my head. I really want to dive into that though. And I want to share an experience with you because I'm curious. So one of the lessons that I learned in my little journey, probably about 12 to 18 months ago, I was doing some big soul work. And I was really diving into this idea of passion because I'm a very passionate person, to the point of once I get passionate, I'm like focused and I'm on a mission, and that's it. That's who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was burning out and I couldn't understand why. If this was my passion, why was I burning out? And I realized that I had misunderstood something. This is the bit I'm quite curious to see, like she's listening now, Selena. So what I realized was that every single passion that I had put that much energy into was for somebody else. It was to achieve something, to solve a problem for somebody else. And when I was asked, what are my passions? Like, what are the things that fill me up energetically? I really struggled. And I realized that over time, I'd been putting all my passion into my work and my mission, and I'd forgotten about myself. So I had to go on this journey of rediscovery. So I created like a bucket list for like the next 12 months, things that I didn't know if they were my passion or that I remembered I quite liked once upon a time. And I reconnected with them. So I did things like I joined Circus Club for every week for a term, and I led to 12 Fire. And I did that, and that was so fun. And I went back to choir, and I started singing in a choir again. And I did all these things that were playful, right? They were passions just for me. And those passions are not really about, I think I confuse passion with solving world problems, really. Like for some reason, I am wired like that. My human design is very much around going through an experience, learning from that, and then re-articulating that and teaching that. That's my whole life. If you look, when I learned my human design, I was like, oh, I see that. Yes. And I'm a generator. So this is why I will.
Me too.
And I will. Right.
Oh yeah.
But by doing that, even though I have that eye and I'm passing that information on, because I was doing that without doing my personal passions that were for no one else, just for me. I was running out of beans, as I would say. I run out of energy, right? So I'm really curious about your take on that. Do you see those two things as separate? Because I'm just really keen to find out your opinion on that. Does that resonate with you? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it matters to how you're replenishing your energy. How are you restoring your energy, right? And so taking that time for soul care, and this is an elevated way to think about self-care, right? Self-care,
yes. Not just a bubble bath.
Right? Not just a bubble bath or going for massage. I mean, those are nice too.
They are.
Yeah, a lot of our self-care needs, though, operate out of deficiency. Right. So just making sure we have enough money and shelter, we're sleeping right, we're eating right, and we're doing all the things, that support our health in some way. That's foundational. Or we're doing things that support our self-esteem. So that's where the conformity and the performance come in. And those all operate out of not being good enough. not being supported. And so we're looking for outcomes. We're looking for things that we think we're supposed to do, to achieve something again, or to not be deficient in the amount of sleep we get or the food that we eat or any of those things. It goes beyond that and actually into a growth zone and looking at aesthetics, about beauty and connection, relationships, and self-actualization, getting to know yourself really well. And tending to the needs of the soul is tending to your heartfelt priorities as well. It supports more of your growth than it is thinking that something's not enough or there's not good enough. So if we're looking at a thing where we're operating out of a sense of lack, something's missing in our life, or if we're not doing something that we feel is fulfilling and we're trying to chase something, then that's going to deplete us. It's going to drain us because, again, we're just operating out of lack. So it really comes down to your mindset, your perception, and where you're operating, what your true motivation and intention is. When we're coming from a place of love, because we already know that we love to do something, we like to generate ideas, or we love to respond to other people and be in engaging conversations like this, for example, then that love, I love acronyms, so I'm going to give you another one here, is lots of vital energy, LOVE, and love is lots of vital energy. So when you're operating out of love rather than fear or lack, then you're actually generating more energy, you're self-regulating your nervous system because you're not trying to achieve something or putting an effort for something. You're actually allowing space for what arises within you, what you love to do, and allow those feelings of joy and peace and bliss and gratitude to just emanate from you. So it's nothing you have to do to get those feelings. You're just giving space to what's arising. Now, the other piece of that is also, it matters whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, because an introvert will replenish their energy through having downtime, being out in nature, around animals, having quiet time, having snacks in front of Netflix. They'll need that alone time and time away from people and to soothe their senses and to allow themselves just to come back into their bodies. And whereas an extrovert will regenerate and replenish their energy through being around people, going to events, getting together with friends and family, or just getting outside and really interacting with people or being entertained, that would be replenishing. So there's no set conditions or rules that's going to support, cookie cutter all the way across. It's finding out more about yourself, that self-discovery, like you mentioned. And, that takes me back to when I was 10 years old. I was looking at the world, and it seems shocking now to think I was only 10, but like I said, it was a natural thing for me, about how society determines our destiny. The authority and the dimming of the voice and creating these conditions that are restricting and not allowing for our authenticity to shine through. And then and again, 3 decades after that, so when I was 40, I had published the book, Embrace Your Power, a healing journal of self-discovery, that had been seeded 30 years before by society determining your destiny, because I've been wanting, and I was writing down notes, sharing my observations, and accumulating all of these ideas and observing humanity in this way of how society determines your destiny, and decided that's not actually what I wanted to share about. Really, what I wanted to do was guide people, again, in embracing their power and to heal their relationship with themselves. And it is a journey of self-discovery, and so there's journaling prompts in there, a lot of questions, reflections, contemplation, and like you had just shared in your example, Selena, about coming back home to yourself, discovering parts of yourself that wanted to be expressed, your creativity, for example, and being able to express yourself through that and discover different areas of your life that weren't tended to very well because we were so focused in one other area, like work and business, for example, and didn't give enough attention to our relationships and our health. And so we see those things deteriorating and getting out of balance, out of alignment with our truth. There's a lot of that talk about balance, and balance truly comes from living in your truth and being aligned with what you truly value.
You've just said so many things that have just resonated with me.
Sorry, I go off on a tangent.
No, it's good.
Passionate I am.
No, this is good. I totally believe that everything we're speaking today has to be spoken. Some of it's for me. I'm realizing. I'm like, okay, thanks. So it's good. I I was listening to you thinking, like, this is self-leadership, isn't it? But it's
Yes, it
deeper
is,
than that.
exactly.
And I want to go back to what you said there around, when we're in a place of lack mindset. I was like, it was really interesting. And I was thinking about this in relation to my previous business, the one that I
Mm-hmm.
closed that drained me, and also the way I sometimes behave in my new business, because I think there's probably something there for me. I'm listening to this going, oh, okay, this desire to prove that I can do this, and which is lack, right? Because I've
Yeah.
decided I have to prove I can do this. Whereas what
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed and observed in my patterns as I work with people is sometimes the less I put out there, the less I'm like, hi, you should work with me. And the more I'm just doing my thing. Like,
Yeah.
I am a very shiny, passionate person. So the best thing for
Mm-hmm.
me to do is to go be with people, groups of people, and just start talking about what I do. And people go,
Yes.
wow. Whereas if I'm spending all my time making really cool social media reels and all that kind of thing, because I feel like I've got to do that. And a lot of my clients fall into this trap too, which is why I amuse myself, because I'll look and go, you just did the thing you spent 2 hours coaching someone not to do last week. Oh, yes.
Right.
We all do it, right? We are
Oh,
human,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But
We
this, I think,
teach what
is
we
really
most
about,
need to learn. Yeah.
we do, right? Especially me, right? With my beautiful human design. I'm supposed to get it completely wrong, learn from it,
Mm-hmm.
and help other people not do the same thing. That's my whole purpose,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's hard work, by the way. It's very hard work. It's trying. And I have a lot of Chiron in my chart as well. So there's a lot of, well, I know I've got a very busy life of self-reflection and growth. I love it though.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
think when we come down to this idea of self-leadership, I think
Mm-hmm.
as a business owner, it can sometimes be really hard to notice when you're doing those things. And so what you're saying here is really, really wise and might seem obvious to my listeners. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if you're listening to this going, Selena, obviously, don't be silly. But for me, like, I think that self-awareness piece of when you're starting to feel drained is obviously a signal, isn't it? That there's not a lot of vital energy in what you're doing.
Right.
I love
There's
that
more
too.
doing than being. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know that in my lifetime, doing is what got me the A grades. Doing is what got me the
Right.
praise. Doing is
Of course.
is how I got my worth for a long, long time. So I love that. I mean, is that what you think self-leadership is? Doing this work and tuning into that and really slowing down. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
a really powerful foundation, like it's something we should be really paying attention to. Do you agree with that? Am I on the right track here?
Absolutely on the right track. And it's conscious leadership, right? It is
Yeah.
self-leadership. It's being led by you, yourself, and not by
Yeah.
society and conditions and, those policies and procedures, regulations, and all of those things that are put into place. Not being
Expectations.
led by those, but actually being led by yourself and being a leader in every area of your life. So guiding and bringing forth your highest self. Now, this is something interesting I just had a revelation about a few days ago, Selena, is the difference
Okay.
between your best self and your highest self. Your best self still speaks to that old paradigm of being the best, high achieving, overachieving, which many of our women in business are, Yeah, being the best version of ourselves. Like we're always hearing the best, best, best. And that speaks to the very masculine energy of achievement and goals and being the best and having this facade of I'm very competent, I'm amazing, and I can't show my vulnerability or grieve or do any of those things because what are people going to think of me then, And take away from that. When you're coming from self-leadership, then you allow yourself to slow down, to be vulnerable, and to be led by what you love and your own values and your integrity. Right? And your wholeness and being in that space. And so, yeah, becoming more aware of, again, where you're operating from, whose beliefs and standards are you trying to meet, and how are you meeting your own needs? How are you leading your own life? Are you doing it all for others? Or are you doing it from a place of service and not trying to prove anything? From a place of presence where real transformation happens naturally rather than pressure or performance. We're coming from presence and we're coming from purpose. So yes, we're still taking action, we're still doing, but it's coming from a much different place and at a different pace even. And so that's really important to find out, how are we operating in the world? Is it the way that we want to show up? How are we meeting our heartfelt priorities? How are we being? And what kind of aligned, inspired action can we take to be in integrity with who we truly are and not trying to prove or meet someone else's standards of who we think we should be and how we should be operating into the world? There's a big difference there. We need to stop shooting on ourselves.
Oh, yeah, we do. Don't shoot on me, thank you. Every time I hear myself say I should do that, I have become a bit rebellious and I do the absolute opposite, which is not always wise, but it's like, no, I have a very strong repulsion to the witch.
Yeah, freedom to be you. And we do need permission. You mentioned that earlier, and I think it's so important is the permission to do that. Yeah. We need to be told that it's okay because we didn't believe that it was okay up until recently, and we started shifting our mindsets and realizing, oh, they're doing it. Maybe I can too, because they're being role models of the light. Yeah.
Exactly, especially in business, because there is so much history of business, it's busyness. It shouldn't be, right? Business is meant to be fulfilling your soul purpose. And if you're not in touch with that, you go off in all sorts of different directions and burn yourself out. Absolutely. Yeah. So do you, being someone who is obviously very good at self-leadership and the soul work,
I'm working on it.
Do you allow? Wow, you sound like it. We're going to believe it.
Thank you.
We're all like this.
Continuously evolving.
Cool.
Yeah.
We all are. We all are. We all are. But being someone who's very conscious in their leadership, how does that show up in your business when you're making strategic decisions? Like if someone says to you, cash flow is low this month, we need to launch a thing, or, like that pressure comes from, you have to have that in business. You've got to have that strategy. You got to know, right, I'm going to launch this time many times a year, or however your business rolls, and there's a problem, or you want to try something new, you've got a soul calling to try a new thing, but the timing looks bad on the spreadsheet. I don't know, whatever there's a conflict going on. How do you allow that self-leadership, that passion, that the lots of vital energy work that you're doing influence the strategy? How do you balance that? Have you had any experience of that?
Okay, this is going to be a real mind flip for people.
Good.
What if we didn't look at, the next strategy or tactic because, that's pressure and that's performance? What if we asked ourselves, what's out of alignment?
Okay.
What's out of alignment right now? Because something's not in sync, something's not working, right? So we unplugged from some source of power and energy. What's unplugged right now? What needs to be reset? The same way that we reset our computer or phone or recharge it or shut it down, or maybe we need to upgrade to a whole new operating system. What's out of sync? What's out of alignment right now? And tend to those things. That's a new strategy, a new way, a new practice to try to implement, and be curious about how that might work. Instead of grasping at something, trust, have the courage, but look at what's out of alignment, because something's not right. Something's not plugged into, you're not plugged into something. So find out where it is that you're not plugged into, what's out of sync, what's out of alignment. You may find that the best thing you could do is take a vacation or sabbatical or some time away. How many times have we heard that as a strategy, right? If something's getting frustrated, walk away from it for a little bit and then come back to it. Especially if you want to launch a new thing, we need to pull back. So if you think of a bow and arrow, right? What do? We pull back first. We don't just go, right?
Yeah.
We have to pull back a little bit first.
Yeah.
And that creates the resistance, yes, and the friction and the conflict. And we pull back a little bit. And then what do? Do we direct it forward? No, we let go.
Let go. Wow.
And it's going to go.
We keep our
eye on the target. Know your vision. Know where you want to go or how you want to feel, most importantly. Because sometimes we don't always know where we're going because we won't know until we're closer to it, right? And then it starts coming clear for us. But know that how you want to feel, kind of like what you want to be able to do. And then pull back a little bit, gather yourself, gather your strength, get your focus, and then just let go.
It's almost like that strategy piece. It's like, I imagine like you pull the bow back and then there is a whole heap of tools, right? You have to have skills. You have to know how to get it to the target.
You have to have some kind of focus.
Like, I can tell you now, I'm not going to hit the target. I've not got this. But, like people who have that bow and arrow, they have strategies. They know that their arm has to be in a particular position. They're going to give themselves the time, though, to, obviously, the more skilled they are, the less time they'll need. I would need a long time. So they're going to pull that back if it was a bow and arrow. And they're going to, like, make sure they got their aim, make sure their posture's right, make sure their breath is right. There's all these parts, right, which we could see as, bits of the business that's going on before. And I love that idea of you just let go and then you don't fret over it. It reminds me of when I used to have an online course with my old business, and launching that is a huge energy. Oh my goodness. And the first thing I learned after the first launch was book yourself 2 days off in a spa and then don't actually open the course until the following Monday, because you're going to be exhausted, because you're going to need a lot of extrovert energy, and you're going to need to retreat afterwards. So even after the bow's gone, I need to sit down.
Yeah.
And I have to just trust. That that's the space of that, right? But also, like, what really worked during those launches over time is I would buy a spell candle, a manifestation spell candle at the beginning of my period of creating. I used to do the 30-day ramp up, and then all of my podcasts and everything would be talking about a problem or something. That's me aligning everything, right? And getting 30-day ramp up. Everyone needs to hear these messages, and I would burn the candle at the start of this whole process, throughout the whole process. And with the goal being that the candle should burn down by the time we get to the end. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it keeps going while we start the course because the energy hasn't quite got there. And that usually means more people are coming. But the learning to let go and not be like, oh, I've sent that email. How many people have opened it? How many people have clicked? What can I do differently now? This frantic kind of like, it would be like the equivalent. Reactive. I'm imagining now someone running towards the arrow and trying to catch it and move it. Like, like that's actually quite dangerous. Let's not do that. But that's a real pull for that, like the control. I need to control what happens.
Yes.
Rather than stepping back and doing everything you need to get that bow and arrow pointing in the right direction, and then just trusting. You've done everything you can now. Let's just see what happens. And then we can reevaluate what next time we pull back. We can go, right, well, this time I need to stand on that tall bale of hay because I'm too short. Whatever it is that's going on. I really love that analogy. I think that's really cool. I love that. That's awesome. Have there been moments in your journey where you've had that kind of experience too, where following your intuition, using a bit of magic around you has led to something that's a really big breakthrough? Have you got a story like that you could share too?
But it's led to a very good breakthrough. I mean, I do that on a daily basis. So I'm trying to think of what was really
think of a really juicy one.
What were some of my pivots? Yeah. Following my intuition, that's led to a great breakthrough. Like all the time. Something that, it's really about just following your calling and following your intuition on the daily practice. Like the more you do it, the more it just becomes a really natural thing for you. Early on, I would question it.
Yeah.
Something would, because it doesn't feel safe, to trust that intuition. And so why would I leave a job that I was really, really good at and making a huge difference in when I was working in social services for 20 odd years of my life? And I had an amazing pension. We had incredible benefits. We had ergonomics. We had a great staff. I loved going to work every day. I loved the people I was interacting with. So why would I leave all of that? Because there was an intuition, a calling that's as far as I can go. There was no way to actually grow from that and to evolve or truly make the difference that I wanted to make, to have the freedom to travel and to see people all over the world, or, to connect in different ways. It was deep work, in social services. You're working with the people in the trenches that are suffering from a lot of different barriers. And so, but at some point I just realized I need to go. I'm going to trust this inner voice, this calling, to do something different. I have to make the impossible possible, because how am I going to pay my bills now, right? And then I won't have a pension and, all of the things we suddenly won't have if we decide to follow this unknown path, and just leave everything. And I did. I followed it. I gathered the courage to do that. It was very wonky at first. I actually went back a couple of months later because things weren't happening fast enough for me. And I didn't
Yeah,
trust
okay.
enough in the process. And then I learned, like, don't quit 5 minutes before the magic happens. Like, don't quit 2 feet away from the gold. Like, you hear those little cliches, but have a lot of truth and wisdom in those, right? I'm like, oh, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get over to the edge. I got too scared, I didn't know what to expect. And then it happened again. It just felt completely out of alignment. I'm like, no, I need to go. I need to just gather some more
I really
courage
do.
and
I
some
just double
bravery and
checked.
take off.
My
Take
mind,
off.
I'm seeing the world card and the fool card,
Yeah.
like the end
Oh,
and the
yeah.
beginning, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the no, and eventually you'll go over the cliff. It'll be great in a
Yeah.
good way. Like you'll
In a
take that
good
step.
way. Yeah. And it's the best decision that I've ever made. And that's when I reached the point of no return because I followed it. I had that breakthrough. And the breakthrough was really just trusting that everything was going to be okay, that I was always going to be provided for. And that was true. As I went along and I took, the inspired, aligned steps and I stayed true to myself and integrity with my values, what was most important to me, then I found that everything just showed up that I needed, all the support and the resources I was guided to, and it brought forth in me the realization that how resourceful I was,
I love
that I
that.
can again
You're gonna see
that
yourself
self
differently.
leadership and
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
take
I love it.
responsibility for myself, become even more independent because now I wasn't dependent on any other system or steady paycheck to support my life plan. Again, I trusted in that higher power and that really came through for me. So that's the breakthrough. We
That's
realized that
brilliant.
we're actually the breakthrough. We are the breakthrough. You're the only
Yeah,
one who
and it
causes
is.
a bottleneck in your life, in your business, and you're the breakthrough.
Yeah, you said that something like about that earlier that I had made a note and
Mm,
I got distracted. You said, no one is getting in your way, like no one's stopping you. And in my head, I went, except yourself. Like we tell
that's right.
ourselves stories. We tell ourselves stories. That's part of the conditioning. It's anxiety. Oh well, like when I closed my business, that was successful, right? Why would I just stop it? Why didn't I sell it?
Right.
All people like don't
Right.
understand. The head's exploding. But I know in my gut why that is, and I've talked about that many times. But like and it was the right choice to make. I do understand. And I was here to go on that journey to learn all the things I needed to learn to continue on what I'm doing. So I had the next download, I guess, to do the work I'm doing now. Who knows what's coming next? Who the hecking heck knows? But I love this. This is great. Now I know that you're not just here to share this wisdom in this podcast, that this is a big mission for you and that you created a guide called Intentional Living for the Awakened Leader. I feel stupid
Yes.
asking you this question, but I think it's an important one. I want this
Okay.
captured. All right. So what inspired you to create that? And what is one shift that you see it make all the time for people? I'm mostly interested in the inspired, but because I think I know everything. So I'm really curious
Yeah.
because listening to you, I can hear it. I can hear the inspiration. I can feel it coming through. It's awesome. But let's put it into words, right? So what inspired you to create intentional living for the awakened?
Yes, it was really a call to conscious leadership. My mission is really to guide the destiny of souls into their most empowered way of being. And the way to empower ourselves is through living intentionally. So it came through as an inspiration for what can I offer that's going to support people in feeling more empowered, gathering that courage to support them in that way. And so it was divinely inspired. Like when you open
I
up, you
can
ask
feel
the
it.
right questions, then you get those inspirations, right? And then the courage to act on it becomes important. And so intentional living is again what we've been talking about, like just really understanding your true motivation for why you do what you do, and understand what that is. And then taking the aligned action towards that. That's being intentional, being mindful, like you lighting up the candle, before you start certain things. It's such a beautiful practice, such a beautiful practice. And then for the awakened leader, that's just more about those who really understand that call to leadership, the call to guide others, to create movements, and to gather in that momentum. We need to be intentional about it. And yeah, this is why I wanted to create this audio bundle. So it's more of an audio bundle. It was a class, actually. It was a 3-part class that I was doing, and it was live. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to put this as recording. I'm a teacher on Insight Timer as well. And on there were so many amazing comments for people about how much they loved each of the parts. It's in 3 parts. And it was just an eye opener. Really, what people talk about is just about the insight and the inspiration and being able to think about things differently. And so that created like a soft opening to explore new possibilities. And that furthers awakens us and be able to guide and bring forth more of who we are and also the kind of impact that we want to have. So that's really where that comes from. Part of that too, I'll give you one little snippet of that, is that quite often people start their day by looking at their to-do list. And one small shift you can take is that conscious connection. First and foremost, to really connect either with yourself and your heart and your soul, or with a higher power, any God of your understanding, the universe, whatever it might be, lighting the candle. I create guiding principles for myself, for example, but maybe someone else would have affirmations. Others would really read some inspirational reading to get that inspiration going. So looking to that first before you go to your to-do list, this is more about your being and grounding yourself, centering yourself in that space. So that's intentional living. And then for the awakened leader, it's like so you can bring your highest self into whatever it is you're doing so that you can transform from the inside out and bring your natural gifts of, and create beauty and change in this world through that. To gather the courage to rise into your calling, we can create those intentional practices that support us in operating from our sacred center and to be able to guide and bring forth others along with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I'm being very self-aligned, I have some beautiful routines and rituals. And I know when I'm not, because I'll suddenly be too busy to do them. Like this morning, I haven't had a chance yet. But normally,
Right? Yeah.
I've had a chaotic morning. But normally, I've got a little altar over there, and I've got my smudgy over there, and I've got a candle at the moment. I've got a self-love candle at the moment. That's what I've got burning.
Beautiful.
And it's beautiful. It has all these gorgeous herbs in it that smell amazing. And when it burns, it creates this like web. It's so gorgeous. I love watching it. It's so beautiful. And I usually pull a card. I pull a card from a deck. At the moment on my desk right now, I haven't. I'll reach for it to prove the point. Look, I'm working with my goddesses at the moment. So I might pull a card while we talk. And I love that because it feels like a way to just ground into receiving, what should I be paying attention to today? Like depending on which goddess appears, I'll know what's coming up. And when I work with my clients, I actually like to meditate and pull cards for them as well before I work with them. And we use those cards I'll go, right, wait, before we meet, I pulled these cards this morning. This is what I'm being told is going to come up. And it's amazing what that opens. It's like permission to speak about, I trust when I pull cards. So that's nothing to do with me, that I'm being guided. My deck is there to support them. And they will see whatever they need to see too, right? And so it's a permission to speak thing. I love it. And so I totally love that. And when I do that, when I make sure conscious choices to build those rituals into my day, my work is so much better. And I do feel more fulfilled by it. And I feel guided in it. And I love that. It's like the Course of Miracles, you're kind of reminded that you are never walking this path alone. And when you do that every morning, because solopreneurship is quite lonely. But when you're connecting with your guides, connecting with your spirit, your God, whatever you want to call it, as you were saying, and you do that regularly, you're constantly reminded that you're not alone and that you can trust. I love everything you're saying. I love it. Getting shivers.
Yeah, we definitely resonate and we're aligned.
We resonate. Yes. I love this. Yeah. All right. Well, I know that my listeners are going to be lapping this up and wanting to connect with you. So below this video and in the podcast notes, we will put a link to your audio series. I think that we all need to, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to see what I can learn from you from that. I'm very excited about that. And we'll also put a link to your beautiful podcast, which is Awaken and Ascend, because these are beautiful stories. I love them. Before we wrap this up, is there one thing that you would want to say to anyone listening to the podcast today who knows that they're here for something more? They've got that, that moment you were talking about, the world cards popped up, that bit's finished, but they haven't quite accepted it yet. And there's a new thing coming. They're in that space. They know they're here for something more, but they're feeling like that intuition or their spiritual gifts are not serious enough. They're not real enough. As my parents, God love them, would say, the hippy dippy nonsense. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
one day they'll get it, but I don't know. They're not serious enough. So they're ignoring that and they're still stuck. What would you say to that person who knows they're here for something more, but isn't trusting that part of themselves that's desperate to help them?
Well, there's two things. One is you are meant for this world. You are meant for this world. That's really important to know, that you are meant for this world. And also to free your spirit to direct the life that you're meant to live. So allow your spirit to direct you and move you forward. And that will lead your life, that will guide and bring you forth all of you, all of who you are, and not be so fragmented, and to be able to honor yourself. That's where the seriousness comes in, is now is your time. Now is the time. The world really, really needs you, and you are meant for this world. So to uphold your sacred responsibility of being here at this time, it is serious to honor your path and to honor who you are, because you are meant for this world. So for your spirit to direct the life that you're meant to live.
I love that. I love that the seriousness is that work, right? I love that. Not the conditioning that you think it is. And it is all about taking that leap of faith. Look, if you take the leap of faith and you fall off and you smack your face, you tried, right? And you will learn so much along the way. Anyway,
Absolutely.
That's part of the fun. It is fun in a weird way. That's part of life, right? Don't say no. I love this. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I have really loved this conversation. I've had so many sparkly sort of shivers. It's been awesome. Thank you for being a powerful example of a business owner walking in the world, really embracing all of themselves and just succeeding and just glowing. Look at you. You're fabulous. I love it. I know this conversation is going to inspire so many people listening. So thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate being here, and everyone who's been tuning in. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Please feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions for Jennifer or myself. I'm sure she will be spying and having a look. I'll let her know. And check the links out below so you can connect with this beautiful soul if you feel called to. That's it for this week's episode of Inner Business. We'll see you next week.